Hey guys, I'm Tom the Tech Chap, and this is the brand new OPPO Find X5 Pro. So there's a whole bunch of upgrades with this. New processor, bigger battery, new camera tech, including some pretty incredible low light video actually. But straight away, you can see they've evolved that curvy camera bump design along with this new ceramic white body. Now in the box, we have the usual gubbins, including this protective case, some paperwork, a SIM ejector tool, USB-C cable for charging or transferring data or whatever you fancy. And this guy, this is actually pretty important. This is the new 80-watt SuperVOOC charger, which is actually 15 watts more than last year's X3 Pro. And the very first thing you notice when you pick this up is next to something like the Galaxy S21 or S22 or iPhone 13 Pro Max, this feels a lot more comfortable to hold. It's thinner, lighter, we have these rounded corners, and there's also a very slight curve to the screen. It's a classic feels good in the hand, as the cliche goes. Although bringing in last year's X3 Pro, from the front it is kind of hard to tell them apart. The big change is on the back. Glass is out, ceramic is in. Now this comes in either black or white, like I have here, and you can see it's a little bit glossy, and yet even with my mucky little paws all over it, it's not picking up fingerprints or smudges. OPPO say it's actually more scratch resistant and also better at dissipating heat than regular glass. And then at the top here, we have the smooth camera bump, which now has a 75-degree rounded edge. So even more than last year, this just really blends seamlessly into the body. It's unique and it does feel really nice. They've also upgraded this crater design for the camera lenses, which are slightly recessed in the body. It's such a simple but effective way of keeping the lenses protected. So, 6.7-inch screen, Gorilla Glass Victus now protecting the front. Corner, 32-megapixel hole punch selfie, stereo speakers, dual SIM, 5G of course, although no micro SD here. And we also have an optical fingerprint reader in the screen, which they've actually moved up a little bit higher so it's easier to reach with your thumb. But I think the most impressive thing about this design is that despite being just 8.5mm thick, it really is quite thin. They have somehow, possibly by magic, or possibly by using a new dual cell battery design, they've squeezed in a 5,000 mAh battery into this, up from 4,500 on last year's X3 Pro. I do need to spend a little bit more time with this before I can give a definitive answer on battery life, but on paper it's a decent upgrade, and we have faster charging. The 80-watt SuperVOOC charger gives you 50% in just 12 minutes, if you prefer. We also now have 50-watt AirVOOC charging if you use one of OPPO's compatible stands, which will fully top up the phone in just 47 minutes. Plus we also have 10-watt reverse wireless charging for topping up other devices. Okay, let's talk specs. And the X5 Pro comes with the latest Snapdragon 8 Gen 1, 8 or 12 gigs of RAM, although that can be boosted by a further 7 gigs from your storage, which itself comes in either 128 or 256 gig flavors. The only slightly peculiar omission here is the lack of Wi-Fi 6E support. This is still just Wi-Fi 6. But the big question, how fast is this? And is it really that much of an upgrade over last year's X3 Pro with a Snapdragon 888, also 12 gigs of RAM? Well, let's find out. Well, bear in mind this is a pre-release device, but in the Antutu benchmark, we're looking at a solid 13% boost in performance. But then, in the 20-minute 3D Mark stress test, there's a whopping 65% jump between their best scores, although this does drop down to 23% when comparing their lowest scores, but it is still a good deal faster, which will be very welcome news if you're a gamer. But wait, hold your horses, because this has a bit of a trick up its sleeve. Sleeve. A secret weapon, if you will. This. The MariSilicon X Imaging NPU. OPPO have developed their own hardware to work alongside the Snapdragon chip's ISP to boost the AI smarts of the camera, with a particular focus on low-light video. But first, let's take a step back and talk about this camera setup. And it's a triple lens system, wide, ultra-wide, and telephoto. And like its predecessor, the X5 Pro's wide and ultra-wide lenses are nearly identical. Same 50 megapixel resolution, same IMX766 sensor, just slightly different apertures, and it means switching between lenses, particularly when you're filming video, is pretty seamless. Then we have the 13 megapixel telephoto, which gives us a 2x optical zoom, And then finally up front, there's a 32 megapixel selfie camera. This actually uses a custom IMX709 sensor and uses RGBW pixels to bring in more light. And you can actually switch the field of view yourself, or it will do it automatically when it detects more subjects in the frame. But there is something missing, actually, compared to this guy, and that is the 3 megapixel microscope lens. It was such a unique feature, and although a little unwieldy to use, and maybe to be fair, I didn't really use it much beyond my initial review, it was cool to get these kind of images from your phone. Quick caveat, this is a pre-release model, and future updates are expected to improve the camera, but first impressions, this is a big step up. The X5 Pro is sharper and more detailed. Even skin tones and contrast are much improved. So to be honest, I didn't really expect this kind of jump in quality year on year. But actually it's video, particularly low light video, where the X5 Pro has really stepped up its game. The Mari Silicon X MPU powers the AI noise reduction and also gives us a 4-fold increase in the dynamic range it can capture versus the X3 Pro, which helps to reduce noise while preserving finer detail, color accuracy, and white balance. And this is all done automatically when the camera detects the lighting is around 20 lux, so when you're out and about at night or in a dimly lit environment, it'll go into ultra low light video mode. Now take all of that and add in a new industry first SLR level 5-axis image stabilization to keep everything nice and smooth, a partnership with Hasselblad, which adds their natural color calibration to the Pro camera mode and also gives us the Hasselblad aesthetic to the camera app, a nostalgic X-Pan mode, which replicates the negative photo effect before it's processed, and also 3 unique photography styles. And of course, just like its predecessor, the X3 Pro, you can still take photos in 10-bit and then view them back natively in all their 1 billion color glory on the 10-bit screen. Speaking of which, let's talk about this screen, because it's a familiar 6.7-inch Quad HD Plus AMOLED display with a 120Hz refresh rate. It is using an LTPO panel, so the refresh can dynamically adjust between 1 and 120 Hz. Brightness peaks at 1300 nits when you're watching HDR content and in direct sunlight and it's sort of maxing out. But this is where things get interesting, because another industry first on the X5 Pro is that OPPO's engineers have color calibrated the screen at both 500 nits and 100 nits. Most phones are just calibrated to 500, which means the colors are more accurate and consistent even when you have the screen dimmed. And in fact, there is 8,192 levels of brightness, so you get really fine control, particularly with lower brightness. Now, being an OPPO phone, this runs Color OS. I am on the latest 12.1 version, and that's on top of Android 12. My only criticism here is that there is a fair amount of bloatware. I've had to hide or uninstall quite a few apps. But aside from that, it's fast, there's a ton of customization options. I also love the wallpapers you get on OPPO phones, and actually you can apply the wallpaper's colors to the whole system UI and icons. So obviously the X5 Pro has some pretty strong competition. But the combination of this unique, very comfortable design, top-notch specs, a very impressive camera, a lovely screen, a bigger battery with faster charging, altogether this is a solid upgrade and definitely worth considering. Now pricing is TBC as I'm recording this, and that obviously is a big factor, but I will leave links below so you can check this out and also update you with final pricing when I get it. But what do you reckon? A worthy upgrade? Let me know what you think in the comments below. And also, if you did enjoy the video and want to see more of me, then don't forget to hit that subscribe button, and I'll see you next time right here on the Tech Chat.